Well, about a week after it seemed like it was going to be the death of despair for Syracuse's football season, you know what? They rescued it from the abyss. And boy, did they rescue it from the abyss. You know, I knew Syracuse was going to match up pretty well with Louisville. I just didn't know they matched up pretty good. Boy, did they match up pretty good. Louisville, I have to say, couldn't stop the run. Of course, Syracuse has got its two main runners, Jerome Smith, the straight-ahead blue-collar lunch pail runner, and Prince Tyson Gully, who's the ballet artist in the backfield. Boy, he looked like Baryshnikov, Nureyev, Goodenough, and Nijinsky. Boy, that sounds like a law firm, a Russian law firm. But I hope they're not going to be stalling about their cases. But let's just talk about them, shall we? Boy, that was a game. First, Krautman kicked a field goal, but then Gully and Smith ran all over Louisville's defense. 3 nice touchdown runs, 2 by Gully, 1 by Smith. And also, Alec Lemon having a hell of a game. 9 catches for 176 yards. Louisville couldn't cover him with a blanket. He was all over the field. Of course, then the SU's coverage relaxed and Bridgewater had to pile up the yards. He piled up over 400 yards through the air. But of course, it was in desperation because SU clamped down on Louisville's run. But you know, I don't know if anybody noticed me. I was in section 129, row Z, and I was enjoying every minute of this game. And you know what? Syracuse knocks Louisville from the ranks of the unbeaten, and at 5-5, they win one of their last 2 games. They're going bowling. Hell, ESPN predicts they might be heading back to Yankee Stadium to the New Era Pinstripe Bowl. And their projected opponent, the Cyclones of Iowa State. Boy, it's going to be a whirlwind of activity if that happens. And the last time Syracuse played Iowa State was back in 1969, during the age of Aquarius, if you know what I mean. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We still got Missouri, and we still got Temple to play. Win one of those, we are going bowling. Hell of a job, Doug Marrone. Hell of a job, Syracuse. Let's keep this momentum going through the end of the regular season. We go from a momentum builder to a momentum changer. You know what? Buffalo always has had a house of horrors time whenever they played New England in Gillette Stadium. They haven't beaten New England in Gillette Stadium, or I should say at New England, since the year 2000, since Clinton was elected. But you know, it seemed as though this time Buffalo had a chance. And you know, New England jumped out to their ubiquitous little lead there on Buffalo. But then Buffalo hung tough. Thanks to Fred Jackson's 2 touchdowns. Thanks to Scott Chandler catching a touchdown. Thanks in part to some gutsy play by Fitzpatrick. The inconsistent one looked consistent. But of course, you got the ubiquitous Fitzpatrick turnover. He gets hit, he fumbles the ball early in the game. Plus, who knew Jackson rubbed margarine on his hands? That fumble there, right there at the goal line, that fumble during the final drive that thankfully was recovered by the Bills. Although I have to say that first fumble kind of looked questionable, especially when Buffalo was going for the touchdown. And then right there at the end, Fitzpatrick, hopefully leading the Bills on a game-winning drive. And what does he do? Have T.J. Graham run a route that Graham fouled up and Devin McCourty was right there to hijack it. Who knows? Buffalo has never won in Gillette Stadium, but it sure was a close shave for the Patriots. 37-31, Buffalo goes down to New England. Buffalo is now 3-6, and it looks like they're going to be irrelevant again for a playoff spot. And guess what? It's a short week, Bills fans. Thursday night at Ralph Wilson Stadium, it's the Dolphins, or maybe people would say the Fish, coming into Ralph Wilson Stadium. Buffalo seems to have their trouble beating their division rivals. Heck, the last 15 times they played their divisional rivals, they've only won twice. Boy, that makes people want to scream, you know. Ah! Makes me want to scream. Because, you know, you got to beat your divisional rivals if you're going to be able to get to the playoffs. Buffalo, you may be irrelevant again. And, you know, one of these years you've got to be relevant. Or we get someone in there that makes you relevant. As right now, Chan Gailey and Buddy Nix's system is not working. I mean, Gailey keeps saying, we're getting better. We're getting better. Where? Let's change the subject, shall we? Number 3 this week, we're going back to the Hill, University Hill. Because guess what? It was a hell of an opener for the basketball team. It had to be delayed a couple days because of the threat of rain there in San Diego. But as Albert Hammond would say, since when does it rain in Southern California? I'm scratching my head on that one. Alright, I got rid of the dandruff. But how about that? We play San Diego State on the deck of the USS Midway. The sun was shining down, but of course the wind was blowing. And they say the wind affected the shots. Oh, it affected San Diego State shots. They were 1 of 18 from three-point range. Of course, we only launched 4 shots from beyond the arc, and Trevor Cooney didn't launch any. Of course, he only played 4 minutes, but it was a hell of an overall game for C.J. Fair, for Michael Carter-Williams and the rest of the Orange, 62-49, even if the wind was blowing, affecting free throws, affecting 3 points. Oh, there's no basketball here. And of course, I'm always full of hot air. Well, let's go change the subject, go back to football. My next thing I'm going to talk about is Mike Leach, the coach of Washington State. A couple of years ago, he was the coach of Texas Tech, and Craig James's son cried foul that he mistreated him, locking him in a dark room and everything. And of course, you know what you get when you get an ESPN anchor, and also that, you get the guy fired when it seems as though Leach did nothing wrong. Now here at Washington State, their star receiver quits because he says Leach runs a program of intimidation and all that jazz. Well, let me just say something to you, Mr. Wide Receiver. Mike Leach may have unique ways of coaching, but he's an old school style coach. And you know what? We need more of that type of coaching. And we got kids that need that more type of discipline. Because, you know, today's kids are coddled. And I think this wide receiver was coddled. You don't win football by coddling your kids. A lot of you kids came from areas where there was no discipline. And you know, Mike Leach and coaches in the past, like Lou Holtz, Woody Hayes, and all of them, preach discipline along with coaching. You know, it's that type of thing that got Mark Mangino fired about 2-3 years ago. Because, you know, the Kansas players didn't want to have a fat guy yelling at them. Truth is, Mangino does have an abrasive personality, but he was a good coach. Just ask Raymond Pendleton. who, after he showboated scoring a punt return touchdown, he decided to do what Reggie Bush does, leap across the goal line. And guess what? Kansas gets flagged with a 15-yard penalty. And of course, there's the clip there of Mangino getting in Pendleton's face. You call that abuse? No. Mangino was setting Pendleton straight. And you know what? A lot of coaches need to do that type of thing with today's kids. Because you know what? Today's kids are coddled all the time. The minute somebody grabs them by the shoulder pads or grabs their face mask, gets in their face, oh, it's called abuse. No, it's old school football. If you don't like it, why don't you try basket weaving or knitting? And last but not least, let's talk about another rough thing. Jeff Gordon, my old friend, or I should say, my old doing what he did to Clint Boyer there at Phoenix for NASCAR. You know, I didn't really like you when you came into NASCAR 20 years ago, Gordon. And you know what? I still think you're a pizza-based punk. And you know, I didn't think you were capable of pulling something like that, like you did with Clint Boyer. And you had the gall to say, oh, he's been tapping me, roughing me all year. Yeah, you deliberately slow down and you deliberately wreck him. And then you wreck 2 other cars in the process. And in turn, you touch off something right out of the Irish folklore. A nice old-fashioned Donnybrook between your crew, Boyer's crew. Boyer was about to join in the fracas when a couple of NASCAR officials intercepted him. You know what? I wish he could have gone in and cleaned your clock, Gordon. You know what? Everything's been handed to you thanks to Rick Hendrick throughout your career. It seems as though you've never had to work for anything in your life. You may be about my age, but you know what? You're going to be $100,000 lighter in the pocketbook, about 25 points docked from your score, and you know what? You're not even in the top 10. Good riddance, Mr. Gordon. It's about some time NASCAR did something to you. And you know what it would have happened had Tony Stewart or Dale Earnhardt Jr. been the one you wrecked? Smoke or Earnhardt would have cleaned your clock, buddy boy. That's all I have to say. I'm Ken Haas. That's my rantings this week, and I'm sticking to 'em.